she's also a he?
More.
More.
I like more.
Well, I'm bisexual, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
I go both ways.
Hello and welcome to Bisexual Breakdown, where we have breakdowns as we break down pop culture. I'm your host, Serena, and I'm here as usual with my co-host and my brain rot bestie, Katie.
Yay, hello.
And today we are brain rotting hard about the new movie called Challengers, which is a romantic sports drama directed by Luca Guadagnino. I hope I said that correctly. Did I say that correctly? I hope so.
It's Guadagnino, I think, is like Italian, so it has a little bit of that flair.
It's starring Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor. And it is how would you summarize this movie, Katie?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, it's funny because you said romantic, and I feel like that word is being used to describe it a lot. I don't know how, romantic it actually is. I would say that it's kind of like a relationship drama with, sports mixed in and just, heavy bisexual overtones, which is where we come in to the equation.
It's so funny because I wonder if straight people watch this movie and did the queer subtext, I think it was actually text, but did that just completely fly over their heads, and is it just queer people reading the bisexual throuple themes into this?
Well, if it is just the bisexuals reading into it, or the queer people, then they're right, because all of that, it's one of those things where we're oh, we feel like this is what's happening, and we're just projecting, which is what fandom was for so long. We're just kind of projecting these ideas to make ourselves feel seen in media. That's just what our situation was for so long. But no, everything that feels very queer in this movie is 100% intentional by I would say mostly by the director, the writer who, oh my gosh, I'm going to call him Justin. I cannot pronounce his last name.
I cannot pronounce his last name either.
And I've even heard other people pronounce it, and I still cannot wrap my mind around it. I'm so sorry. So I'm just going to call him Justin. The writer, Justin, I think when he first presented the script, there was not as much of the kind of queer undertones, but it was really the director, Luca Guadagnino, who introduced that. When he was presented with the script, he was if I'm doing a kind of a romance, quote unquote, movie with a love triangle, then he was I want all of the corners of the triangle to touch. And that's a literal phrase that both the director and the writer have used in interviews, is all 3 points of the triangle have to touch in order for it to actually be a triangle. I've seen exactly, because people talk a lot about love triangles in a lot of rom-coms. I'm kind of thinking of, I don't know, Hunger Games or Bridget Jones's Diary. Those are two that just have come to mind. But it's really just two guys chasing a girl. And that's not really a triangle, is it? That's
no.
That's a corner.
Yeah. You can't have a love triangle without bisexuals.
Exactly. I think that there was an interview that the writer did where he says that love triangles have to be inherently queer, because no matter what mix of people you have in the love triangle, it's gonna be queer somehow. So yeah, I think a lot of that was brought to like I said, was kind of brought to the table by the director. And so I know that the writer actually made a bunch of additions to kind of include that. One of the really big scenes from the movie that was in all the trailers that everyone was kind of talking about was the kissing in the hotel room scene that was added in later.
There was so much visual stuff too, really heavily implied, or blink and you missed it, kind of hinting at the queerness of these characters.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think a lot of that was down to the director. Same with this is kind of an infamous scene now too, the scene with the churro in the cafe.
Yes.
that scene was supposed to happen, but it was like the director and the two actors who were kind of like talking that scene out, and they came to the conclusion or the idea to like include the churros in that.
Mhm.
Something about that really like ratcheted up the like sexual tension in that scene. Like it was crazy.
To a scene that involves a banana, and I was just like, this is so
Yeah.
unnecessary. You wouldn't include that unless you were implying something.
The number of phallic foods, it's funny because there's kind of like a parallel in the movie because I was talking about the churro scene, and in that scene, the character Patrick like finishes his own churro and then steals his friend's Art's
Art.
churro. Yeah,
Yeah.
and eats that, and it's like a little harder to catch, but earlier in the movie, after they finish playing their like doubles match that they win, they're like
Mhm.
walking through like the tennis championship to go watch Tashi's game, and they're
Mhm.
eating hot dogs, and the same thing happens where Patrick finishes his hot dog and throws the wrapper aside and then grabs Art's hot dog and starts eating it, and it's just
Yeah.
like all of like the phallic shaped foods,
Yeah.
like those are all 100% like those are
Intentional.
choices.
Yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
are intentional choices. So bringing it all back to what we were talking about, like, yeah, I think maybe straight people aren't reading into that. That maybe they're not noticing it. I don't know, but it makes me kind of sad if they're not because it was
Yeah.
clearly something very, very intentional that the creators like put into this movie.
Mm.
But it's also kind of nice. It's just like, like the gays get like a little treat, you know?
Also, I have to ask you, I don't know if I was
Yes.
hallucinating this, but there was a scene where Patrick, it's like present day Patrick, and he's scrolling through Tinder or something that looks
Tinder,
like Tinder. And this, is it just me or did he swipe right on a guy?
he did swipe right on a guy.
Okay, because like
Yeah.
I was asking people and they totally missed it. I was like, did I hallucinate that? Like, did I just want him so badly to be
No.
bisexual that I imagined it? Yeah.
No, I definitely like it's kind of hard to say with a character like him, and I mean, they don't get into it in the movie. It's hard to say if, like, I I don't know if he would, like, consider himself bisexual,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? I kind
Yeah.
of feel like he would consider himself just, like, an equal opportunist kind of, like, a person, because to
Yeah.
be clear, actually, let's do, like, a blanket statement right now. We've kind of already, like, gotten into it, but if you're gonna listen any further, there's probably gonna be spoilers because I'm not really, like it would be hard to discuss this movie without spoiling stuff. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just a blanket warning, heads up. There's going to be spoilers. Anyways, back to that scene. I think like for in context, so he's like just looking for a place to sleep
Mm-hmm.
basically because his card got declined at like a hotel, and so
Mm-hmm.
he's looking through Tinder to find someone to hook up with so that he can sleep at their house. I mean, if it had been a yes with the guy and he would have gone there and slept with him, and yeah, so obviously stuff would have happened. It's not just that he needs a place to stay. He's
Yeah.
also like going to sleep with whoever that person is. So yes, no, you did not hallucinate that. That 100% happened in the movie.
Also, there's a
Yeah.
scene where they both make out with Zendaya, and then you think it's leading to a threesome, but it doesn't happen, and she leaves.
Mhm.
And there was a split second there where it looked like Art had a
Mhm.
boner, and like Patrick just like slaps his boner. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like it happened so fast, but it's like, is this heterosexual behavior? Come on, like
Yeah.
who does this? Especially after they both just like completely made out. Like it started out like the three of them were kissing each other, and then like Zendaya just leans back and just watches these two guys go at it, and they just
Yeah.
keep going at it.
Part of it feels like it had to have been intentional, right? Cuz how did they not notice that she had left?
Yeah. And that
For one.
they're just making out with each other. Like, and
Yeah.
that went on a while. Like, are you not aware?
Yeah, it went on until she stopped it, like
Yeah.
like, they were not gonna stop until she spoke. I don't remember what she says, but yeah, she starts talking and they realize that they're just kissing each other, but, like, yeah, I'm like, how did they not realize that before? Because I also noticed, not that I've, like, studied this scene or anything, but, like, they're, like, grabbing at each other too during
Mhm.
that scene, so I'm like, you
Yeah.
guys know that this is, like I don't know, I think it's just kind of fun and interesting that it feels like she's almost, like, giving them permission or, like, the space to, like, do that with each
Yeah.
other.
Because I feel like they're
Um,
so drawn to each other. They're very, like, physically affectionate with each
yeah,
other already. So, like, in the early few minutes of the movie, they win, like, a doubles match, and
yeah,
they're celebrating, like, they're jumping up and down and hugging each other and, like, on the floor. Like, it's you know, you do that when you're, like, hyped up and
yeah,
excited and, it's a thing that's people who play sports do, but, like, it was really kind of intimate
yeah.
the way that they were, like, hugging each other and, like,
Oh, yeah,
rolling on the ground, it was just like,
yeah.
this is not just, like, sportsmanship, there's something else here, and, like,
There's
you
something
can
else going on here.
yeah, like, there is no heterosexual explanation for this.
No, I don't think so either. I love that aspect of the movie, obviously, but I really like all of it, and I kinda wanted to it's funny because we kind of went off into a conversation about the kind of, like, queer aspects of the movie, but I kinda
Mhm,
wanted to ask you because this seems to be, like, the hot topic anytime I ever see anyone talking about this movie,
mhm.
um, anywhere, like, online is everyone's like, "Oh, I'm, like, team Tashi," or "I'm team Art," or "I'm team Patrick," as, like, the person that they think was the least, like, responsible or the least, like,
Uh-huh,
toxic, I guess. Or some
yeah.
people and this is the part that's, like, crazy to me because I really 100% disagree with this statement, but a lot of people think that, like, Art didn't do anything wrong in the whole movie, and I really disagree with that. I think that I'm pretty sure that someone calls him a snake in the movie. I think that maybe
Mhm.
Patrick calls him a
Patrick
snake.
does. Patrick calls
Yeah,
him a
and I
snake,
he's
and
right.
Patrick says, "I'm actually proud of you."
Yeah, which is
That's what I would
sweet, like
do.
yeah, that's crazy. We do need to get into that because that
Mhm.
whole, like, weird that's just, like, such a weird dynamic because again, that's back in, like, the churro scene, and he, like, knows that Art is kind of trying to, like, stir up shit between
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
him, and so at this point, Patrick is dating Tashi, and, like, apparently it's going well. I mean, you don't really, like, hear anything about it other than from, like, Art's point of view, and he
Mhm.
is, like, telling both of them behind the other one's back that, like, the other one isn't as committed,
Yeah,
you
like, it's
know?
clear that he's trying to sabotage that relationship so that he can get with Tashi.
Mhm, exactly. And, like, Patrick knows that, and he's, like,
Mhm.
really excited about it. He even
Yeah.
says, he's like, "This just makes it hotter for
Yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
knowing that you're, like" and that again, that's also not a very heterosexual thing. Like like, pardon? Like, you're, like, turned on by the fact that your friend is, like, wanting to get with your girlfriend? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. That's some, like, weird psychological thing, but
Yeah,
kinda just, like, makes sense for his character, honestly. I kind of love
yeah.
that.
So I've not
Um,
read anything online.
yeah.
I've not read any I've not seen any opinions of other people. I've not read any
Mm,
reviews or, like, interviews with the cast. So, like, I'm kind of going into this just completely fresh. So I didn't even realize that there were people who were, like, on teams, like Team Tashi, Team
yeah,
Art, or Team Patrick. Because to me, there is no team. It's like
yeah.
you can't be on
Agreed.
someone's team. Like, I'm rooting for all of them because there is no, like, pairing of just, like, 2 people among the 3. I feel like it works when it's all 3 of them. I feel like the reason that Art and Tashi, like, their relationship was a little bit dysfunctional was because they were both missing something, and Patrick is that missing thing. All of them are kind of broken in their own way and that they need each other. And for me, like, this movie is about these 3 people who are incomplete and they're all trying to find their way towards each other, which in the
Mhm.
end they do. Like, it was all
Yeah.
about the 3 of them finding their way back to each other, recreating
Mhm.
that moment when they were young, and all 3 of them were in that room and there was something magical that just happened there. I'm team all 3 of them. I'm team throuple.
You know what? This is why we get along so well, I think, because that's, like, exactly how I feel about the whole situation is that, like, they all did messed up things to each other.
Mhm.
Honestly, one of the loudest opinions I do see is people who say that they don't think that Art did anything wrong. I, like,
Uh,
really, really disagree with that because I think that, like I mean, what we already mentioned, he was, like, actively trying to break up Patrick and Tashi's relationship, which is, like, messed up. But then also, I think that he was really unnecessarily, like, rude to Patrick a few times.
mhm.
One being when Tashi hurts herself, And, like, I feel so bad for Patrick in that scene
Yeah, where he yells
because
at Patrick to get out.
that scene, like, actually, like, kind of breaks my heart because from Patrick's point of view, he had just, like, a little spat with his girlfriend, and it makes sense that, like, if you just had a fight with someone, maybe you wouldn't wanna, like, show up to their game. He didn't
Mhm.
know she was gonna be, like, injured that
Yeah.
badly, and but then as soon as he knows that she is, he obviously comes there to, like, support her,
Yeah.
and he's just, like, turned away, like, really aggressively.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that, like, people
yeah.
might read that as Art being, like, protective of Tashi. So Tashi's upset with Patrick, she doesn't wanna see him, and
Mhm.
so Art is like, "Patrick, get out," and it sounds like he's trying to protect her, but to me, it came across as, like, a little bit performative, like, "Look at
Mhm.
me, I'm the hero in this situation, I'm getting rid of Patrick," for his own benefit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel, it's a little bit of both of those things, like, it's definitely, like, he wants to look like he's kind of, like, the hero in that situation, even by, like, the way that he, like, ran down to the tennis court,
Mhm.
as soon as she was injured.
I mean, I
I
think
mean,
he
I'm not
genuinely does care,
Yeah.
right?
I was gonna say, I don't think that that was, like, fully manipulative, but,
Yeah.
like, I do feel like that's, like, kinda what he wants to, like, be, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just, like, that scene just, like, really broke my heart because I was like, "Damn, you guys, like, did not have to do him like that." And then even just after that, like, that's kinda like the end of their friendship for, like, a
Mhm.
very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, that's, like, really heartbreaking to me to think that, like, something like that just, like, ended their friendship for
Yeah.
I don't know, it just, like, really bums me out, and that's why I kind of feel like Art definitely had, like, a big part to play in their, like, relationship just, like I mean, I think he was the main reason their friendship just, like, fell apart.
It just
Yeah.
feels like, I don't know, like he's antagonizing Patrick unnecessarily, and he's the one who broke up the relationship between Tashi
Mhm.
and Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's actually I think about this a lot, that it's very strange that, like, we see Art and Patrick together in that scene where Art tells him to leave,
Mhm.
and then after that, like, he really only sees Tashi for, like, years. Like, there's no, like we're not, like, given any indication that, like, Patrick and Art are even, like, seeing each other or speaking to each other at any of these, like, tennis events that they're both at.
Mhm.
It's like
But
we
there's that one
see
scene, right, where they meet in the sauna. What year is that?
Yeah, that is literally, like, right before
Oh, is
the,
it?
like yeah. That's,
I
like, the night before the big tennis match. That
okay, I was
is
a little
the
bit
whole, like,
confused.
through line of the I was actually the first time I watched too. I feel like everything like, so much happens in this movie, and it's just, like,
Yeah.
a really, like, fast-paced, like, thing,
Yeah, because it
and
happens
so
in the
yeah.
span of, like, 13 years, but there are
Yeah.
flashbacks that, move back and forth,
Yeah.
in that period, so it can be a little bit confusing sometimes, especially because the
Mm.
characters look exactly the same.
Yeah, they do kind of try to, like, do makeup to, like, age them, but, like,
Yeah.
at some point, I would say that the time jump between, like, Atlanta, which is, like, 8 years before the, like, current day,
Mhm.
and, like, what they look like in current day is, like, quite similar. So
Mhm.
it's during that part when it was kinda jumping between Atlanta and, like, current day, it was a little bit hard to, like, tell the difference. But yes, so no, the sauna scene is the night before they play, like, the big match that's, like, running through the full movie.
So
So
is that
that
the first
Yeah.
time that you see them together after that scene where Tashi is injured?
Yes, yeah,
Really? Huh, okay.
yeah. So that's what's so, like, insane to me is that it feels like he has just, like I don't know,
Like, they've cut each other off
yeah,
from
like,
their lives.
completely, and it feels like I mean, maybe this is me being, like, a little overdramatic, but I feel that, like, Patrick is really wanting to get Art back, and
Mhm.
I feel like it feels like he only has access to Tashi, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it feels like he kind of, like, latches onto that a little bit because
Mhm.
he quite literally has like, no way to, like, contact Art. Like he has no like he just doesn't run into him. He doesn't like there's no way for him to like contact him. It's
And
like
I think that's by
yeah,
design by
yeah,
Tashi, because Tashi is his coach slash, I don't know,
yes,
like she manages all aspects of his
yeah.
career and his
Wife,
life.
coach, everything,
Yeah.
manager, I think. Yeah,
So
yeah,
and then she seems to be the kind of person who's like very in control, and Art does what she says, you know? And it seems like she's the one who's been like gatekeeping Art and trying to keep Patrick away. And, you know,
yeah,
they see each other in the lobby of a hotel, and she says, like, you know, stay away from us. And it seems like that's something that she's actively been doing all this
yeah.
time.
I agree. And that's kind of why I feel like part of the reason is that Patrick wants Tashi, obviously, but also
Mm-hmm.
part of it really feels to me that like that's like his only access to art is through Tashi
Mm-hmm.
until, yeah, that scene in the sauna when he finally has a chance. And then also, yeah, like Art is so mean to him in that scene.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit of back and forth because I feel that like Patrick likes to poke at Art, but it
Yeah.
feels a
Yeah.
little bit more like gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, Art really says, like, a lot of really mean things to him in that. Like, he
Yeah.
kinda pokes fun at being like, "Oh, like, are you still upset that, like at the thought that, like, Tashi could be into someone like me?" Which is, like,
Mhm.
a little bit of, like, a dick thing to say. I'll
Yeah.
give him that.
But
But,
I think it's also his insecurity talking,
yes,
right? Like the
I think
whole
so
thing
too.
about it, you know, like the running theme, one of the running themes of this movie is Art's lack of confidence and drive. And
Yeah.
Patrick knows this about him and like
Mhm.
needles him about it. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why Patrick says in that scene where like, "Oh, I see what you're doing. You're like you're a snake. You're trying to break up me and Tashi, and I'm proud of you," because it's
Yeah.
out of character for Art to like really go for something. You know, he's
Yeah.
kind of like passive and doesn't really have much confidence in himself. So I feel
Yeah.
like Patrick recognizes that in him.
Yeah. And I think that's why like Art attaches himself so aggressively to like Patrick and Tashi because
Mhm.
Patrick and Tashi feel more like at the beginning when Art and Patrick first meet Tashi, she calls them fire and ice. And like
Mhm.
I feel like it's pretty clear that Patrick is fire and
Mhm.
Art is ice. But I feel like Tashi is also fire. Like
Yeah.
Patrick and Tashi are both just like really they just like have stronger personalities. They're more
Yeah.
like they like know what they want. They're a little more like aggressive and all of that. So I feel like Art really latches onto that and I feel that's just like what he really needs is that someone
Mhm.
like that in his life. Like he
Mhm.
really like he needs that kind of like guiding hand, that like direction, someone with like a stronger personality to like
Mhm.
take care of things for him. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite things is like the when both Tashi and Patrick catch his gum when he spits it out of his
Yeah, yeah,
mouth.
yeah.
Like you see like Tashi
The
do that first before
parallels.
like
Yeah.
the parallels. Yeah, like it really feels like he like needs someone to like take care of him.
Yeah.
And first is Patrick and then it's Tashi.
Yeah.
But it could be both of them.
Yeah. I
You
think he
know.
needs both of them. And I think that
Yeah.
like there's a part of Tashi that finds that like deeply unattractive about Patrick. Like
Mhm.
I don't think
Yes.
that she respects him or is attracted to him because he's so needy in that way. Like there's so many
Mhm.
times in the movie where she's like, "You shouldn't care about what I think. What do you want?" Or,
Mhm.
you know, like she is trying to get him to be passionate about something because he seems so passive and he does things because she wants him to do it. And the thing that
Yeah.
he craves most is not to be a great tennis player. It's not about winning, but it's about gaining her approval. And she kind of hates
Mhm.
that. But then,
Yeah.
like, since her injury, it feels like being invested in Art's career as a tennis player is like the only way that she gets to keep playing tennis in a way.
Yeah, I do think that that's, like, a pretty strong, like, theme is that Tachi is very much using him, like and you can kinda see that even before she injures herself, like, she kinda wanted to use Patrick like that. Like,
Mhm.
their fight kind of started because I mean, they were trying to have sex, but, like,
Mhm.
she kept first of all, it's so funny to me in that scene that she's, like, jerking off Patrick while talking about art. Like,
Yeah.
that's another, like, little thing of, like, queer subtext that we didn't mention. at the beginning. But yeah, definitely like she's literally like talking about art and how like handsome he is and how smart he is and how good at
Mhm.
tennis he is, and she's like jerking him off. But yeah, so in that scene, like their fight starts because she's like trying to give him advice, and he's like, can we just like do what we're doing, like either like have a
Yeah.
conversation that's not about tennis, or like make out or
Yeah.
have sex, or like whatever it is that they're doing there.
Yeah.
And she gets really like upset about the fact that he doesn't want to like talk about tennis and like take her advice, and he kind of
Mhm.
comes back with like, I'm not going to be your lapdog, I'm not like art.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like what he is to her a little bit. He's
Mhm.
kind of like, I would look at him as a, not even just a lapdog, he becomes kind of like her like show dog in a way, you know, of like,
Yeah.
this is what I've created because I cannot, she can't play tennis for herself anymore, so instead she has to like build him up to
Yeah.
be that. It's funny that like he can't even really like achieve that, you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
still hasn't won his final US Open. So yeah, I think that's kind of like a little like indication that there's like something missing there.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's Patrick.
I really like how this movie, does callbacks to things and shows
Mhm.
like multiple parallels reinforcing things about each character throughout like the 13 years in which this movie takes place. Because there's a
Mhm.
scene in the present day where Tashi and Art and their daughter, and
Mhm.
her daughter's like, "You're always talking about tennis," or something. Like
Yeah,
and Art says the same thing too. It's like whenever they try to talk about something else, Tashi always brings it back to tennis. And so like it really reinforces that, that's her
that's
priority.
her life. Yeah.
That's the thing that drives her. And I think like
Mhm.
maybe at this point it's useful to talk about character motivation. So I think for
Mhm.
Tashi it's tennis. Like it's about
Oh yeah.
the game. It's about being the best. It's about losing yourself in the
Mhm.
game. And so she can't play it for herself anymore. And so, she takes Art and molds him into like an avatar for herself and trying to achieve her dreams through him. And
Yeah.
Art doesn't feel that way about tennis or anything really. I mean, he's not that passionate about anything, but he goes along with it and becomes a pretty good tennis player because that's what Tashi wants him to be. But the
Yeah.
main thing is like Art loves Tashi and he wants to be with her and he craves her approval. And like, there's this running theme of like him lacking confidence. And part of it is it's because of her, right? Like he can feel
Mhm.
that like she's doesn't completely approve of him or respect him or love him or is attracted to him. Like there's something missing. And he
Mhm.
doesn't, it comes to a point where he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. Like I
Yeah.
just want to retire. And Tashi says, if you do that, I'll leave you.
Yeah. I will say though about that
Yeah.
line, I don't know if I've really, like, seen anyone mention this or, like, agree with this,
Uh-huh.
so this might, like, just be my, like, interpretation of that
Hmm.
scene, where I really feel like maybe this is, like, my fanfic brain. I almost feel like she says that not because she's actually going to do it, but because she thinks that's what he needs to
To
hear.
hear. Yeah, yeah. I
You
think
know
so
what I
too.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want that to be, like, super out of left field because I feel like I haven't really seen anyone, like,
Yeah.
talk about
I
that.
feel like it
They're all
could
like,
go either way though, or like
"Yeah.
she's maybe thinking about it. Like, do I
Yes.
care
Yeah.
enough to stay? I mean, like, I don't think that she's made up her mind about it one way or the other
Yeah.
completely. But like I
Yeah.
think that that's part of it, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe part of it is, like, real, but I also think that part of it is just, like, I think that she knows that big emotions are, like, the only thing that are going to get to him,
Mhm.
and do you know what I mean? Because the
Yeah.
thing that does finally end up, like, lighting a fire under his ass is Patrick revealing that he's been sleeping with
Yeah,
Tashi
yeah, yeah.
during their tennis match. So, like,
And
yeah,
that
and so I think
it's like a really great like
the
callback to an
reveal
early
of
it
that
just it's
is, like,
so good.
genuinely one of the best things I've ever seen. I, like, it was one of those things where, like, the build up, I was like, "I know that it's coming," like, I was
Yeah,
thinking it,
yeah.
like, the whole, like, the whole time Patrick is like doing his really like slow like serve. He's not
Yeah.
like a slow server, but like I mean like he's like thinking about it for so long,
Yeah.
and he actually gets penalized for that. But yeah, I was like that whole time I was like, oh my god, he's gonna
He's
do it.
gonna
He's
do
gonna
it.
do it. And
Yeah.
then he finally does it, and I was just like, oh my god, I was like losing my mind. Yeah,
That whole tennis scene was
is
amazing because it was
incredible.
like
Yeah,
a non-verbal conversation between the three of them. Tashi is
yeah,
in the stands, and Art and Patrick are facing off on the court, and they,
yeah.
are having a conversation about, their relationship and like the past 13 years and like
Hmm.
all this pent-up emotion without talking about it, but like through
Yeah.
actions and the way that it was filmed. How it was filmed as a conversation between the three of them was so
Yeah.
good. We were talking about how, like, throughout the movie, there are parallels of what both Tashi and Patrick mean to
Hmm.
Art and how, like, they understand him and the role that they serve in his life. So, and you
Yeah.
were saying about how, you know, Tashi said the line about, if you don't win tomorrow, I'll leave you, because she thinks that's
Hmm.
what Art needs to hear. And, like she's trying to light a fire under his ass so that he will get fired up and win. I think that
Hmm.
that's also what Patrick is doing when he
In the
reveals
sauna.
during the match that he
Oh
slept with
yes.
Tashi. Because I think
Yeah,
he's
I agree.
goading Art. Like, I know you can play better than this. This is the push that he needs to get Art to, I don't know, let go, to, be fully engaged in the game, to feel like fire, to
Yeah.
try to want to win. Because I think Patrick knows that it's in him and he needs to bring it out. And that's how he brings it out.
Hmm.
Because I
And I
think,
agree. He does that not to like stick it to Art.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like he's not
yeah,
doing it to
yeah,
be like, "Hey, I slept with your wife. Like screw you."
yeah,
He's
yeah.
literally doing it because I feel like, and this is what I was gonna say is like this is like the big difference to me between like Tashi and Patrick, which is that
Hmm.
I just think that like Patrick likes Art more and is more like understanding of
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, I think so too.
yeah, and that's why I think that it's just like so necessary for like all three of them to be together because they fill just like really specific like needs and roles for each other. And I
Yeah,
do think that like while Patrick is very similar to Tashi in that he's very like has a strong personality, whatever, all that kind of stuff, he's a little bit more like understanding and is more capable of like pushing Art in a way that he like needs to be pushed, maybe.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because so in this match, Tashi asks Patrick to lose on purpose, but to make it look realistic. Like, she wants
Yeah.
Art to win and she wants Patrick to lose to Art, but in a way that is convincing, that doesn't make, that doesn't give Art any indication that Patrick threw the game. And so in the end, when he reveals that he slept with Tashi, that was him deciding to let Art win, because he knows, I think this is my interpretation, that if
Yeah.
he reveals this, it'll light that fire under Art's ass
Hmm.
and bring out the tennis player that he knows Art can be, and ultimately beat him. And
Yeah.
for
And
me, it was kind of, in a twisted way, it was like a selfless
yeah.
act. He was
Yeah. That's
giving
what
his friend what he thinks that his friend
yeah.
needs.
That's what's honestly like I love Patrick a lot. And I think that it's because he is such like he's like kind of a piece of shit. But
Hmm.
there's just like I don't know, he's just like the way that he is written and the way that he kind of like I don't know, just like so many things about him are so interesting and like complex. And it
Yeah.
almost feels like we don't really like get enough with him
Yeah.
to like fully like understand everything about him, but the parts that we get are really great, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
Um
At the start of the recording, you said that you wouldn't describe it as a romance, but I would, because I think that was fucking romantic.
okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. It's not like a traditional romance though. That's why I feel like weird. Like I've had a few friends who have like asked me like to describe this movie because they're like I don't know anything about it because they're not like on the internet rotting their brains every day like I am. And yeah, every time I'm like I would hesitate to like describe it as romantic to someone who hasn't seen it because I don't want them coming into it thinking of it to be like a traditional romance because I don't
Yeah.
think it is. But I do think obviously there's like, yeah, there's definitely romantic actions that happen in it.
And so, like, in that ending scene, it's such a callback to also like the first scene where they win together, right? Because Patrick reveals, like through his serve non-verbally to Art that he slept with Tashi. That
Mhm.
gets Art like really fired up, and he starts playing like this amazing game, and
Mhm.
he's about to win, and he's about to, I don't know tennis terms actually, he's about to do
Me neither.
like this move that is going to make him win, but it's a risky move because he jumps really high and he hits the ball, but he's about to fall and hurt himself, and Patrick catches him, and they kind of hug, and they kind of land in the same way that they did at the start of the movie where they're celebrating their win at this doubles match. I thought that was like such a nice parallel. Like it's come full circle now. Like we're back together, and we fit together again in the way that we're supposed to, you know?
People seem to think that like having callbacks to something that happened earlier in the movie, and as an audience member being able to predict that, they view that as some kind of like failing, like the movie didn't do a good enough job of like surprising you, but that's kind of like that's like the point, right? Cuz
Mhm.
I think especially with that scene where yeah, like Patrick does his serve like Art to like let him know that he's been sleeping with Tashi. It's like you don't think about that moment in the movie until that scene comes up and then you realize what's about to happen. I think that that's done really successfully because yeah, it's like I wasn't like the whole time thinking about, oh, is that going to be like a callback? Is that going to be a callback? Like it just occurs to you in the moment. And I think that they pull that off so successfully. And I don't know, it's like one of my favorite moments. Also, because I did just watch this movie like not last night, but 2 nights ago, it was just like I love watching movies more than once because, you know, the first time you watch a movie, I at least for myself, I feel like I'm so focused on like what's going to happen next. But then when you watch something more than once, it kind of gives you the opportunity to, I guess, like notice details or like
Mhm.
appreciate things more. And
Mhm.
like watching that movie from the beginning to the end, like knowing what happens, I was so struck by how like well built up the tension is because when I watch it from the beginning and watching how it just like opens with them playing tennis against each other and you just assume that these two people don't know each other at all,
Mhm.
and then how it sort of like really slowly like builds their backstory and it keeps coming back to that match that they're playing against each other, and every single time it returns you have more and more like context in which
Mhm.
to view that tennis match between them. I don't
Mhm.
know, it's just like it's so well structured and it reveals everything in such a slow but like satisfying way.
Yeah.
And then also by the time you like reach the end, it's just like there's so much tension.
I
Um,
think that you mentioned the structure, and like
mhm,
I like how all the choices were so deliberate. Like there's nothing wasted in this movie. Like everything that they show, every tiny bit of dialogue, every detail, like even like the non-verbal actions of the characters, they all mean something, and they're all building towards that climax in the end where everything falls into place and ties together so neatly. Like it's just such good storytelling.
and I also was kind of struck again by how the structure of the match kind of matches wow, I'm saying a lot of the same words right now. The structure of the match matches the structure of the movie is what I'm trying to say. Because I'm pretty sure Patrick wins the first set and that kind of is
Mhm.
like reflective of how, you know, he sort of like wins Tashi's number and everything is like going really well for him. But then
Mhm.
when they start the second set, I think that's what they call it in tennis, second set, then I'm pretty sure Art wins the second set. And that's when he starts becoming like friends with Tashi. And then eventually, like, she starts coaching him and they start dating and whatever. And then the third set is kind of, I can't remember who wins the third set, but it's very much like a more intense like back and forth. I need to fact check my theory. Well, because I think there's four. Is there four sets in
I don't
tennis or is
know.
there only three? I
I
don't
have
know
no
either.
idea.
See,
I don't know anything about tennis. I'm wholly
me
unqualified
neither.
to comment
I
on this
know.
sport.
Me too. That was so funny because yeah, my friend also was like asking me questions during the movie, and I was like, I don't know anything about tennis. Like, I'm like, I know what happens in this movie, but if you ask me a question that's like specific to tennis, but I said to her after I was like, you know what, if watching real tennis is anything like watching this movie, then maybe I would be into it.
Mhm.
Like maybe I should get into tennis and see if I am into it.
One thing I was wondering while I was
Yeah.
watching this movie is like, is tennis this sexual? Like the sounds that they make
Yeah.
when they're like slamming the ball back and forth and like the grunting. I was like, this is so like, I don't know if this is like, that's just what it sounds like, or it's intentionally erotic in the movie, or I don't know. Does it sound like tennis players are constantly having sex while they're playing?
I think they do. My whole like TikTok for you page has been almost nothing but challenger videos. And I've seen a few videos from people who are either really big tennis fans or actually play tennis. And I think the grunting is like pretty spot on from what I've heard,
Mm,
is that there is a lot of noises, a lot of like grunting. Outside of that, I don't know. I did see a video talking about some like real life like tennis rivalry friendship things that may have like inspired this movie.
mhm,
I'm not gonna say names because truthfully I don't remember, but like yeah, there was someone who posted a TikTok talking about how there were these two like tennis stars who were really good friends, but then they all of a sudden just started being really like I can't remember what happened. I think that like either had to play like a final against each other or something, and it kind of just like ruined their friendship. One thing that the writer actually mentioned is that the singular event in tennis that started this story for him was a situation between, I want to say it was Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka. I think
mhm,
that's who it was. This was like years and years ago, where Serena Williams was accused of receiving coaching while she was playing, like from the sidelines, like from her coach, which I guess is something that's very different from other sports, because in other sports it's very normal to receive coaching, or like,
mhm,
during breaks in between sets or periods or whatever, you can like talk to your coach and like discuss like what's happening. Apparently, that is not allowed in tennis at all.
mm,
And so, Serena Williams had to try to convince them. I don't know how, I remember hearing about that situation because it was caught up in all sorts of other accusations of like racism in the tennis world and all of that stuff. But yeah, so to not be able to receive coaching when you're playing is like, I guess the writer said that he felt like that was just like a really isolating part of tennis. Like you're just on the court by yourself. You can't talk to like the one person who is there to like help you
mhm,
basically. And you have to do the whole thing alone just with the person on the other side of the net.
mhm.
And yeah, so he kind of mentioned, he was like, it just seemed like it was a really like lonely sport. And he was like, and what do you do if you feel like you have to talk to somebody, and like maybe you talk to somebody using the game that you're playing.
Oh, that's so interesting because that last match was such a nonverbal conversation between all
Yeah.
three of them.
Yeah, exactly. And I yeah, like keeping that information in mind and like watching the movie again is like crazy, because you can see even in that, at the beginning when we have no idea what's like happened between these characters, you can see them all like sharing looks. And like I tried to kind of watch it and put my mind in the mind of someone who hadn't like seen it yet and didn't
Mhm,
know like what was happening, and just like watching them all like sharing looks is just like so, I don't want to say confusing, but it's literally just like, what do all of these looks mean? Like, you
mhm,
can see like Patrick looking at Tashi, and then there's like Art and Patrick are staring at each other, and Art keeps looking at Tashi too, and like she's like giving them looks, and she's like nodding to Art, and like all this stuff, and it's just very like, again, it's that whole like structure and buildup of like the tension and everything in the
mhm,
movie. Yeah. And I also feel like, talking about like callbacks, like to me, this is like the biggest and strongest like indicator of Tashi's character and her like wants, because
mhm.
in the scene where they're in the hotel together, and they're like a lot younger. This is before she started dating either of them, and they both want her number. And so she says, she's like, "Well, you two are playing against each other tomorrow. Like, whoever wins, I'll
Yeah,
give
yeah, yeah.
them my number." And Patrick ends up winning that game, which is why they end up dating. But anyways, before that, she says to Art, she was like, I know you can beat him. And he says, do you want me to beat him? And she says, what I want is to watch some good fucking tennis.
Yeah.
That is literally what
Really.
happens at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, like leading up to that, what she says to Patrick is that she wants Art to win. But I
Mhm.
think that in that moment, also, I mean, this is it all just kind of like builds up to those last like few minutes of the tennis match, because also before that, she's watching the match, but she looks very like disinterested and kind of bored for the whole thing. But then in that last moment, she's so caught up and her head is like flipping back and forth to
Yeah.
like watch the ball go, and she's getting like so into it. And in that moment, I think that that's like why she gets so excited, because it's not
Yeah.
like whether or not Art won, but like she wanted to watch some good fucking tennis, and that's like what
Yeah.
she got out of that. And
Yeah.
it's just like so beautiful how it all like builds to that, and everything
Yeah.
is just like that's what she wants, and that's like what she got at the end. And I just like it kills me when I think about that, because I'm like it's just like so beautifully like crafted into that like final moment. I have goosebumps thinking about it.
Art actually becomes like the person that she wants him to be and
Mhm.
becomes the tennis player that she wants him to be, but he does it for himself, like
Yeah,
finally. He's not
yeah.
doing it for her, he does it because he wants to and because Patrick lit that fire for him.
I just wanted to bring up, this is so funny because we were talking about how like we don't really feel like team this person or team that person. But it's so funny. You said that you haven't really watched any interviews. I've
Mhm.
watched like a shit ton of interviews. I've watched like probably almost any like video interview that the cast has done, which is like whatever. And that's just how I'm letting it take over my life. It's so funny because Zendaya is like really, she's like an anti art, like, she really thinks that he's, like, a snake, and it's so funny because
Ooh.
anytime that they're asked about it, she's, like, really, like, riding hard for, like, the hater train on Art, which is so funny to me. I don't know why, but it's just, like, the other 2 are kind of, like, a little, like, like, a little, like, nicer about it, but
Mhm.
it is funny because I've seen, like, a lot of interviewers come in to, like, talk to them, and they really feel like Tashi and Patrick are, like, the villains of
Huh.
the movie.
I don't think there are any villains or heroes in this
Me
movie. It's
neither.
just
I
like
was
3
Yeah.
broken people.
Exactly, and it's, like, 3 broken people who really just, like, need to go to therapy
Yeah.
together and find a way to
And
make it
finally
work
have
as,
that
like, a
threesome.
throuple.
Yeah.
Exactly. The threesome that's been building up momentum for 13 years finally just needs to happen.
In my mind, that's what happens after Art wins the tennis match. The 3 of them go back to
Agree,
the hotel, and they engage in the threesome that they should have done 13 years ago.
agree, and you know who also agrees? The director, because he was
I
asked
love
about the
him.
ending.
Bless him.
I know, he's an icon. He was asked about what happens after the movie fades to black, and he literally said maybe the 3 of them would go back to the hotel. I was like, "Yes, king. That's what the people want. You could have put that scene into the movie." Although no, because I actually really like I see a lot of people being really, like, confused about the ending. I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, I think that it's kind of, like, perfect." They
It's
literally
so clear. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, "How do you" I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm, like, pretentious about movies or whatever, but when I see people not, like, understand very what I think are, like, obvious suggestions or, like, whatever about, like, that things that happen in movies like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
What are you like, are we watching the same thing?" To me, it's
Yeah.
just, like, really
I think that some
clear
people
about
need things to be, like, explicit for them to get it, or are not comfortable with something that is left to interpretation but is strongly implied, you know?
yeah. Also, I wanted to bring up because there's, like, been, like, a huge discussion about who actually wins the
Mhm.
tennis game at the end,
Mhm.
because
I think wins. I thought that was pretty clear.
who?
Art.
Art?
Yeah.
I don't well, I thought that too, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, obviously, because like, the ball lands." This is someone who literally does not know anything about tennis,
Yeah, I mean, I
but,
wasn't
like,
that like the tennis equivalent of a slam dunk?
that's what I thought, but then a lot of people said that because Art touched the
The
oh my gosh,
net?
the net, that would be, like, disqualified.
No, but that was after. It's like he hits the ball and then he's falling towards the
Mhm.
net, and then Patrick
You think the
catches him.
ball hits before he touches.
Because he was falling, and
Yeah.
Patrick catches him, because if he doesn't, then I think that like Art would be injured.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I
so
thought
too.
that's what happened. Or maybe they left it ambiguous as to who wins, because it doesn't matter because they both win. Everybody wins. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that this to me is just kind of like a silly thing to just like discuss because I really feel like who wins the tennis game like literally doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It really doesn't
It
matter.
really it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter because the point of like the whole movie and everything is that they all found their way back to each other in a way that is like meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, at the start of the movie, Zendaya says, Tashi says that tennis is a relationship. It's like being in love.
Mhm.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's not that subtle.
No, it's not subtle at all. There's just like that tennis match that runs through like the whole movie and it is like basically like demonstrating acting out their like relationship. Like it's so
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's pretty on the nose. And again, it's coming back to that thing where I'm like when people like don't understand that, I'm like, are you like okay? Like did you like pay attention to this movie at all? But yeah, going back to like the end because I saw someone on Twitter say that they think that like that was another kind of like choice made by Patrick to like catch Art
Mhm.
because he literally like drops his racket and if
Mhm.
he hadn't and he might have had a chance to be able to actually hit that ball back
Yeah.
maybe.
That's how I interpret it too. It's like he chose Art over winning.
Yeah, he drops his racket and like catches him because yeah, oh yeah, if he had not caught him, he would have like really hurt himself, I think.
Yeah.
He would have just like fallen right onto the net and probably like smashed his brain.
So my read of that was that Patrick's character Art is like he puts Art first for once. Like he's kind of like a dick and self-interested throughout the whole movie, and this is like his act of selflessness and love.
Hmm. Yeah. I always think about that look that he gives Art in the churro scene when they're in the
Mhm.
cafeteria together. Like right before he like calls him a snake, he just like looks at him and there's just like such unfiltered like
Yeah.
adoration like in his
Yeah.
eyes. He just looks like he's so like he just like really, really loves this person. And it is, like, one of those things where it's, like, almost like a little bit of, like, repressing their, like, sexuality a little
Mhm.
bit. It's, like, almost
Mhm.
like they don't really know how to, like, accept this, like, part of themselves.
Yeah.
From both of them, honestly, I think that Patrick kind of comes around to that in a way that Art probably doesn't because
Yes.
he just ends up marrying Tashi and whatever Tashi says goes and he doesn't really like have the space or the time to really like come to understand that about himself.
Yes. And that's why I think that showing Patrick swiping on a guy on Tinder was deliberate to show that, like, he's made this journey. He's figured this out about himself.
Yeah, I kind of dig that for him. He's just kind of like he knows that he's not just into girls, I think.
Yeah. I mean, to borrow a line from Mary and George, like, bodies are just bodies.
Bodies are just bodies. That's so true and
Mhm.
he's into them. Oh my god, the soundtrack.
Oh my God. Yes. I wanted to.
I
And the
like
way that
want that.
they use music, like the silence speaks so
I
loudly, like the
know.
choices where there is music and where there isn't any music. Oh my God.
Yeah. This is another thing where I've seen a lot of people be like, "I didn't understand, like, the choices about, like, the music and blah, blah, blah," and I'm like, I loved it because you could just, like, tell because sometimes they were just, like, having conversations with each other,
Mhm.
and then the
Mhm.
music would kick in, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is about to, like, ramp up." It's literally,
Yeah.
like it's, like, pumping you up for, like, this argument that these 2 characters
Yes.
are about to have. Like, it happens
Absolutely.
in the sauna, and then it happens when Patrick and Tashi fight in her
Yeah.
dorm room, and I'm just like, oh, I love it." Like, the music itself is amazing, but also, like, it is literally just, like, getting your heart racing and your blood bumping, getting ready for this, like,
Yeah.
moment where they're just gonna, like, lay into each other, and I love it.
Especially the parts where I think that when the focus is on Art, and it's the theme
Mhm.
of, the scene is about like his lack of drive, his lack of confidence or whatever. And like, the moments where he's speaking, like there's no music. And
Mhm.
then like there's a scene where he and Tashi are talking about like his confidence, and Tashi's like, "What do we need to do to get you to play better?" And then
Yeah.
Art is like, "Well, what do you need me to do?" And it's like silent. And then
Yeah.
Tashi leaves the room and then the music returns. It's like his lack of confidence is because of her. I mean, that's how I interpreted, like, when he's alone, like some of that
Yeah.
comes back to him, but when she's there, she's actually the reason that he feels
Mm.
insecure.
Yeah. I didn't really like put that together, but now that you're
Mhm.
saying that, it totally makes sense. So then if what you're saying is like true, then
Mhm.
like he feels that confidence then when he's in that sauna with
With
Patrick
Patrick,
because
yeah. And, like, he's kind of hyping himself up, right? Because Patrick is there. I don't know. I
yeah,
feel like there's something about Patrick that brings back his confidence, and
yeah,
then, and in the way that, like, the last tennis match played out, right? Like, it's
yeah.
actually Patrick who gives him his confidence back in a way.
Mhm. Yeah. 'Cause, yeah, this is kind of before Art is starting to say, like, really rude things, but, like, they're kind of, like, verbally, like, sparring back and
Mhm.
forth, and, like, it just, like, looks like they're both enjoying it, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah,
Especially,
yeah.
like, Patrick, like, he's, like, really, like, smiling and, like,
Yeah.
almost, like, kinda getting into it, although I did read that it was kind of, like, a choice of the actors. He made the decision that, like, whenever Patrick was kind of, like, angry or irritated, that he would smile.
Mhm.
And so he's kind of like that's just like his way of like processing or like showing like the anger is like the smile. It's like partially really attractive and partially like really maddening the way that he like smirks throughout like the whole movie at
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
Like it just feels like such a what's the word I'm thinking of? Like he's really trying to like push your buttons and he's like
Mhm.
trying to push the buttons of like Tashi and
Mhm.
Art. 'Cause, yeah, it feels like such, like, an aggressive, like, I don't know, thing to do to them, that, like, smirk that he does.
I love that, like, that Trent Reznor did the music for this movie. I'm, like, a
Yes.
huge Nine Inch Nails fan. I think the
Mhm.
Nine Inch Nails concert that I went to, like, over 10 years ago is probably, like, my favorite concert experience of all time.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
that's so cool.
and I love that he gave us an end credit song about polyamory, like, what a king.
That's so true. Yeah. Yeah, I love that soundtrack. I immediately, like I, like, left that movie theater and immediately downloaded the soundtrack onto my phone. So I was like, "This is gonna be" I'm probably gonna get, like, a speeding ticket listening to that album because it just, like, makes me so hype that I'm, like, flying down the road. They've just done, like, so many soundtracks, like and it's funny because I didn't know, again, that they had done the soundtrack to this movie
Mhm,
until I saw it in the credits, but I remember in the middle of that movie thinking that it sounded like something I'd, like, heard before. Like, I was just, like,
mhm.
listening to that music, I was like, "Why does this feel so, like" I don't know, it just feels, like, so familiar, and then, yeah, the credits came on, and I saw them, and I was like, "Oh, of course," like, that makes so much sense because it just really, like, feels like it feels like something that they would do
Yeah,
with like the kind of themes running through like we brought up the fact that there's kind of like that theme of like the phallic shaped foods
yeah.
and also just like Patrick taking the food from Art.
Mhm.
There's also like a lot of clothing sharing going on in this
Yes,
movie.
yes, yes, yes. Tashi was wearing that shirt. I don't actually know who it belongs to.
I think it belongs to Tachi. I
Uh-huh.
think, I don't know. But like Tachi is wearing the shirt and then Patrick comes to her dorm room and they're gonna have sex, so they're like undressed, but then
Mhm.
they leave because they start fighting and he takes her shirt. Not on purpose, I don't think, but he just like is grabbing clothes and like
Yeah, yeah.
leaving. And then there's that one. I think that's like kind of the more obvious one that people talk about, but it also happens at the beginning. There's like a green shirt with white stripes that Art
Uh-huh.
wears to watch Tashi play. And then later when they're in their hotel room, they, like, scramble to put
Oh,
clothes
yeah,
on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Patrick picks up his shirt and puts it on. So he's wearing Art's shirt in this scene where they're all making out with each other.
Yeah.
And then it also happens again at the end when, Tashi leaves the hotel to meet up with Patrick.
Mhm.
She's wearing one of Art's shirts
Yeah.
to go so, yeah, there's, like, a whole, like, theme of, like, sharing clothes between the 3 of them.
Yeah.
Which I also love.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like these are all like very intentional. choices to just to, if you weren't like picking up on the hints, here's another one.
I know, it's like if you weren't already on board with the throupling, like,
Yeah.
here's another, like, reason why. I'm repping team throuple, that's, like,
Yeah.
my big cause after seeing this movie is, like, no, they all 3 of them belong together. Some, like, background lore on this movie, they filmed it all the way back in 2022.
Hmm.
It was supposed to come out fall 2023, but
But
they pushed it back because of the actors strike,
ah,
because a huge part of this movie was their, like, promo.
yeah.
They've been doing, like, crazy amounts of promo, like, especially, like, with Zendaya and, like, all of her, like, insane, like, tennis-inspired outfits that she's been going around. Well, it's not just her, I mean, she's been with Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, but, like, she's the one with the star power that's doing all of, like, the
Right.
amazing, like, red carpet outfits and everything
And
at
I
all these
love like
different
her
events.
red carpet game because she's always like, consistent with the theme of like the movie that she's promoting. It's great.
Yeah, always incredible, like, she just, like, always looks so good, and she's, like, always, like, fitting the theme of anything that she goes to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that was, like, a huge part of their plan for the rollout of the movie, and since they weren't gonna be able to do that, they actually pushed the release date back. So, like, I didn't realize that until really recently because I remember, like, seeing the trailer for this movie, like, ages ago.
Yeah,
It was
me
probably, like
too. And
like,
that
forever
that
ago.
that gif of
Yeah.
like the three of them like kissing was
Yeah,
like going
on the
around the
bed.
internet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I remember, like, I have a coworker who we both really love Zendaya, so, like, we were, like, talking about that movie, and we were talking about how excited we were for it, and that was, like, ages ago. And then, yeah, when I finally realized that it was, like, actually being released, I was like, "Oh my god," like, I swear I saw the trailer for this ages ago. I'd honestly kinda thought that, like, it had, like, a really limited release and that I had
Mhm.
just, like, missed it. I was like, "Oh, I just like, this must have come out already or something, and we just didn't get it here, and so I don't know." And so I was kind of, like, looking into it to see if I could, like, find it to watch somewhere. And then I realized that I was seeing ads for it because it actually was, like, coming out in theaters and hadn't been released yet. So that was, like, exciting because yeah, I kinda thought that I don't know, it's kind of like a weird thing that a movie like this would have such, like, a large release because it's not like a traditional, like, blockbuster kind of
Yeah.
movie, but they've been really, like, almost promoting it like it is a blockbuster movie,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting. I hope that it does well because I think that there's, like, a real market or, like, almost like a niche or, like, a need from, like and the audience for, like, stories that are more like this and a little less, like, traditional, like, blockbuster kinda
Yeah,
movies.
I'm a little fatigued by quote unquote big movies. Like this is just like
Yeah.
an interesting like character study, an interesting like dynamic to explore. Like I don't need ending of the world type things or,
Mhm.
aliens and whatever. Like
Yeah,
I'm so down for like really interesting stories about interesting people.
exactly. So, yeah, I really hope that I mean, it seems like this movie is doing pretty well so far. I know that it is the highest grossing tennis movie ever
Mhm.
made.
I watched it in the middle of the
Yeah.
day, in the middle of the week, in a non-English speaking country, and there were, like, a bunch of people in the theater, so, people
Yeah.
are going out to see this movie.
Yeah, both times I've seen it, the theater's been pretty packed, especially the first time because that was, like, the preview night because it would like, technically came out on the Friday, but I saw it on the Thursday. And then also, I believe that it's the highest grossing movie the director has made so far.
Ooh.
I mean, he hasn't really done a lot of, like, big like, this is probably the biggest, like, movie that he's put out. Like, Call Me by Your Name was big, but that's just because it had, like, a lot of, like, Oscar buzz around it, but that movie was actually never playing in theaters where I live.
Oh, really?
Um,
I mean, I thought it was a big movie.
yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised, that I couldn't have access to it, like, I remember being actually really angry, that was one of the years because I mean, I'm, like, kind of obsessed with the Oscars, so I always try to watch all of the nominated movies,
Yeah.
and that was one that I had to acquire illegally because
Oh.
I just, like I couldn't find it anywhere, like, wasn't playing in theaters here.
Oh,
And
it
by the
wasn't playing in theaters where I was living at the
yeah,
time either. But then, like,
yeah,
we don't always, I mean, where I live, we didn't really get a lot of movies. So it
yeah,
wasn't surprising for me. But like in
yeah.
Canada,
I mean, I do live in like a smaller town. Like if I lived in like Toronto or Vancouver, I probably would have had access to it.
I watched it on a plane, like a year after it came out or something.
Yeah, I was just like, I mean, I really wanted to see it, and I was kind of like angry about just like the lack of international rollout of like Oscar movies because it feels
Hmm.
like, like if someone wants to go see this movie and it's nominated for an Oscar and they would like to pay money to see it, it's like what are the options for them, right? Like
Hmm.
like I would like to pay money to help like support film because I feel very like passionately and strongly about movies, and I just like wasn't able to because there was no option for me to. Couldn't even rent it at that point. Like it wasn't even like on streaming yet. And that was kind of before COVID. Like now I feel like things hit streaming pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was before COVID, so it wasn't like on streaming or anything yet. So anyways,
Oh, I remembered something that I wanted to bring up.
oh, that makeout scene though, that was
Yeah.
sorry. It was yeah.
I know, like
Yeah.
Zendaya totally living the dream where she just leans back and
I
she's
know.
like self-satisfied and like, watching these
I
two guys
know.
make out. I was like, oh, girl.
I know. I was like, damn, she's literally living the dream.
My sister texted me, like, Zendaya's just collecting all the talented twinks who fuck. And it's like, that is so accurate.
Literally. Literally though. Oh my gosh. I also have to say, because that I'm becoming like a little obsessed with the actor who plays Patrick.
Yes, let's talk about this because before we went in to
Mm,
see this movie,
what a
yeah,
man. Yeah.
we were a little bit obsessed with Josh O'Connor already. Not just because he's a very talented actor, but also because he is extremely Colin Morgan coded.
He is. That's actually what I sold you on, I think. I mean, I thought, yeah, it's so funny because I also have seen so many comments of people, mostly on TikTok, being like, "Oh my god, I thought that was the actor who played Merlin in
Hmm.
in BBC's Merlin." Like, no, they just look very similar. If Colin Morgan hadn't had his beautiful ears pinned back, I think that they would still look very similar.
Yeah.
But what is so funny is like, okay, this may sound like kind of stupid because I know that actors act. That's kind of like their whole that's like literally the job description, but I don't know if I've ever had such like aggressive whiplash
Because he
going.
played Prince Charles on The Crown.
No, not just that, but like this was before I even like put two and two together and like realized that he was the one who played Prince Charles in The Crown. But no, this is just like him in interviews. He is like the most delightful human being I've ever seen in my life. He has like the sweetest little like British accent. He's
Yeah.
literally always smiling and laughing and just being like the nicest person I've ever seen. And just like going between like how Patrick is in the movie, which like first of all he's using like an American accent
Yeah.
in the movie, and I don't really think that I realized he was British.
Yeah, I think that if like you only saw him on
Yeah.
Challengers, you would be surprised to find out that he's actually extremely
Yeah.
British.
And I was like, pardon? Because what's also funny is that I saw a tweet before the movie came out that was like, I can't believe that dude from Challengers is actually British. And I thought that they meant the other actor.
Ah, Mike Feist.
He's from like Ohio or something like that, like some like crazy mid America like state. But like I thought that he looks British to me. And so when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, he's doing like a really good American accent. Well, he's doing his own accent. And then like the other one, Josh O'Connor is the one who's British. And yeah, it just like really blew my mind. But going between like how he is in the movie and like
Mhm.
watching the first like clip I saw of him as just like himself in an
Yeah.
interview, I was like, oh my God, this is like the sweetest person I've ever seen in my life. Like
Yeah.
he's just like so cute. I'm obsessed.
My whiplash was from seeing him on The Crown to watching him in this movie. I was like, how is it? I mean, they look this, similar, but like, how is this the
Yeah.
same person?
Yeah. He was also in Emma. Did you ever see that?
Oh no, I
No.
haven't seen that one.
Okay, it's really good. He plays the priest in that movie. That was, I think, maybe the only thing I had seen him in because I don't know. I did watch most of The Crown, but I'm not sure if I ever got to the episodes that he was in
He was
show,
like
but
in the middle.
okay, because I watched up until the episode with Colin Morgan, which
Yeah,
I think
it's
was like,
after that.
okay, so yeah, I didn't get to the episodes with him in it yet. So yeah, I didn't really like know him from that, but I
Okay,
had
well,
seen him
now you
as
have to
a
go and watch it, Katie, because like
I
the
think I have to,
transformation
yeah.
is amazing.
But I don't know if I wanna watch because I know that Prince Charles, like, isn't a good person.
No, 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 but like and I said this when I was watching The Crown. I was like, they've made him like way too attractive and sympathetic in this show, like
Oh,
compared
okay,
to real
that's good.
life.
Yeah. Okay, because I was like, he's just, like, such a little, like, sweetheart to me now. I don't know if I wanna, like, go and, like, ruin that by watching
It's
something
a
where he's,
really
like, a
good
jerk, but
performance.
yeah? Okay, maybe I will watch it.
I mean,
I'm,
he
like,
won
really
a Primetime Emmy and a Golden Globe for that
yes,
role, so
I
you should go see
know.
it.
I love that for him. He's also gonna be in another more, I think, explicitly queer movie that's coming out
Oh
sometime. I
no,
don't
he's
know.
one of those Katies.
Shh, I know. I can't. That's like catnip to me.
Actors who play chronically gay roles.
Yes, I know. That's like literally that is my kryptonite. I cannot like that kills me. Anyways, he's gonna be in a movie with Paul Mescal.
That sounds so gay already.
So what are you doing right now?
What am I hyperfixating on?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so I started the gay firefighter show called
911?
911, but it's just the
Mhm.
gay firefighter show. And I started watching it because people were freaking out over something that happened in season 7, and I didn't even realize that this show had gone on for 7
Mhm.
seasons. But a fan favorite character is now canonically bi, and they've been shipping this character with another character since season 2. And so, the fandom is celebrating, and it's a very wild, crazy time on fandom spaces. And so I just wanted to know, what all the fuss is about. So I started watching it, and it's really intense. So I'm only at the start
Mhm.
of season 2. Season 1 only has 10 episodes, and the rest of the seasons have 18. So I have a long way to go. It's a
Mm.
procedural drama about emergencies that are happening in downtown LA. So it's like police officers and paramedics and firefighters and stuff.
Mhm.
All these wild, dangerous situations that people find themselves in. And like the things that they come up with every episode are so friggin' stressful. Like, am I enjoying myself? I don't know. I like the characters, and like there's this really great found family dynamic. Like I understand why people like it. And it's also kind of very sincere and earnest, and like, just good feels. But like the emergencies genuinely stress me out. And I would not have chosen to watch this if not, wanting to understand what everybody's talking about. And it's like, I've made it this far, so I guess I'm going to keep going. But like, wow, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It is not a relaxing, curl up on the couch kind of thing for me. Like, I'm genuinely stressed out.
Yeah, when you, like, told me you were watching it, I said to you, I thought that it was, like I mean, I guess it kind of is, but I figured that that was a show that there was just, like, too many episodes to try to catch up on, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I thought that this was, like, a Law& and Order style procedural show where there was, like, 100 plus episodes that was just gonna be, like, impossible to ever catch up on, but I think there just might be a lot of, like, crossover between the things I enjoy and like, people who like the things I enjoy also like that show
Mhm.
because when that whole thing went down where they were like, "Oh, it's gonna be canon that he's, like, bisexual now," that
Mhm.
was, like, literally the only thing on my, like, Twitter feed, and I, like, don't even watch the show.
A lot of
Yeah.
crossover too between, like, I think 911 fans and Supernatural fans, because a lot of the news
Mm,
that I was seeing about 911 was coming from Supernatural fans, and there was a lot of discourse
right.
about like, well, this character wasn't intended to be queer at the beginning, but like the narrative took its own course, and
Mhm.
the writers went with it, and they were allowed to explore that side of the character. in a way that felt, satisfying and true to the story so far and to
Mhm.
who that character is. And, of course, everybody's still salty that we didn't get that from Supernatural.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like cheesy and earnest, but not like in a bad way. Like I said, it's very
Mhm.
sincere and the
Yeah.
acting is great. Like the chemistry among
Mm.
all the different characters is really, palpable. You really feel
Mm.
like the affection and care that they have for each other and this found family that they've formed. And yeah, I think it's great. And there's like a lot of really great like representation of like different types of characters and identities, sexual orientation and like race. And I think it's just really well done without being, too on the nose.
That's cool. I would maybe be interested in watching some episodes. I don't know if I could watch that, like, from the beginning and, like, all the way through, but I'm, like, curious to, like, see
Mhm.
what it's like.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when I'm at season 2 where they introduce the other half of the ship, and it's like
Mm.
it's wild. Like, were you not intending this to be queer? Because like so they introduce this character from the point of view of, the now canonically bi character.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, so Buck is the canonically bi character, and
Mhm.
Eddie, the other half of the ship, is introduced from his point of view. And in that episode, like Buck turns around and Eddie is like taking off his shirt in a very sexy way. And What a Man by Salt and Pepper is playing in the background. It's like, how is this character supposed to be straight? Come on, guys.
The closet is glass. That's really funny.
I saw that and like even without like, the context of what happens later and like the fandom, I'd be
Mhm.
like, what on there was no heterosexual explanation for this.
No. That's so funny. I'm sorry. That's so good.
You
So,
need to watch it.
at least that episode, I wanna see that moment.
What about you?
I
What are
can't
you
I
hyperfixating on?
literally can't think of anything that I'm hyper fixating on other than Challengers, which we've already spent, like, a long time talking about.
And you've seen it like what,
Um,
3 times now?
yeah, in theaters, I've seen it 3 times, and it hits every time. It's amazing. I would go see it again in theaters if someone invited me.
Are you finding that like each time you watch it, you notice something new?
Yes, definitely. In fact, one thing that I noticed that was new in this last one, I don't know how I missed this the first time because my friend noticed it and it was her first time watching, but like the player that like Tashi plays the first time when like Art and Patrick watch her play tennis,
Mhm.
that I can't remember her name,
Anna
Anna
Mueller?
Mueller. Yeah, she's then later on the TV
Yes, I
in
noticed that.
Atlanta. Yeah, how did I not notice that? And, like, the announcer saying, like, "Oh, she's really on, like, a hot streak, and it seems like no one can beat her," and Tashi's, like, watching this on TV, probably
Yeah.
being super pissed off. But, yeah, I don't know how I never noticed that the first time, and then I brought that up, and my friend was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I clocked that." I was like, "How the hell did I not notice that?"
Well, you're paying attention to other things because there's so much
Paying
stuff
attention to other
going on.
things. Yeah, I'm too busy looking at Zendaya's face, which is distracting.
She's so
Um
gorgeous.
She's so gorgeous. I'm just like outside of even just like the movie, I'm just like getting really obsessed with like the actors. I already talked about how much I love Josh O'Connor. He's got some kind of like crazy life going on. I don't know. That man has like a real history. His whole family is really like big in like the art world in the UK, which I did not realize.
How?
I
Like,
listen
are they actors
Yeah.
or okay.
No, no, I listened to a podcast that's about, like, because I was looking for other podcasts to listen to that, like, him or, like, any of the others have done, and he did an interview on this podcast that's about art, and his grandma was a ceramicist, and his grandfather was a sculptor and an art teacher at a school, and his grandfather, like, taught a lot of really, I guess now, like, famous contemporary artists, and he's also curating a collection of his grandma's, like, work, because both of his grandparents have passed away now, that he's curating a collection of like his grandmother's art. And he himself like does ceramics and does drawing and stuff like that. And then also his grandfather built a church in the countryside in the UK, like with his bare hands.
What?
Yeah, and he like did the like stained glass windows of them and everything. And I guess his mom like grew up going out into the country with his grandfather and spending time in the country while his grandfather built this church like in the country. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Wow.
That was just like such weird information to learn. I was like, that's crazy. Like, what a family.
Yeah.
Um
And just thinking about like him talking very knowledgeably about art in his like posh British accent, like so different from his
Kind of hot.
character.
Oh, that too. Yeah, both he's like so different from his character. It's like actually kind of crazy. But yeah, the podcast was really interesting, and yeah, he talks a lot about just like growing up. I guess he spent like a lot of time with his grandparents. Like his grandfather taught him how to draw. He like would sit him down and force him to just like draw and draw and draw, and he wouldn't like let him like take the pencil up off the page. He was like, if you've lifted your pencil, then the drawing's done. So he would just like draw and draw and draw and draw and draw without lifting his like pencil from the page. I guess his grandfather forced him to do it so much that he kind of like hated it for a long time.
Mhm.
But then he kind of like got back into it. And then I didn't realize, I thought that they just like weren't on Instagram, but he does have an Instagram, but it's all just like super artsy, like there's like a couple posts about challengers on there, but then the rest of it is just like photography he's done or like
Oh, wow.
pictures of ceramics that he likes.
Mhm. It's very interesting and attractive.
Anyways, that's what I've been hyperfixating on, is just I guess learning about Josh O'Connor's art background. But yeah, I've also been thinking of like I stopped watching The Crown before it got to the episodes with Josh O'Connor. So
You
I've been
have to
thinking of
watch
like
it. Yes.
I know. Now I feel like I have to watch it because I'm like, oh, okay, I should continue watching and at least watch the episodes that he was in. But yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff. Like, it's fun when you find an actor and they've actually done a lot of projects for you to watch.
Mhm.
He was also like in this like kind of comedy show from like a while ago called The Durrells, I think is what it's called.
Have not
Um,
heard of it.
Me neither. It was like a British like kind of comedy show. I don't even remember what year it ran, but there's like 3 seasons or 4 seasons. So yeah, I'm getting into it. I'm getting stuck into it. That's what I'm doing with my time. That's it. That's all I got.
As usual, thanks for listening. Our website is bisexualbreakdown.com, where you can find links to all the places you can listen to the podcast, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, as well as links to all our social media. We are on Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok, and we are Bisexual Breakdown across all of those platforms. You can leave us comments and feedback on any of those, or if you prefer, you can email us at bisexualbreakdown@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye. We are both bisexual. That's so true.